welcome back to the Mega Meeple, the show all about gamers and the games that bring them together. I am Tom.
I'm Al. Thanks for downloading us. We appreciate you taking the time to listen to our show.
And if you haven't already, you can subscribe to us on iTunes. And while you're there, be sure to put out some of that 5-star loving and leave us a happy review. It really helps us out.
And we are on all the different social networks, even the ones you can't even think of. Instagram. What else is out there, Tom? We got all kinds of stuff.
We got Twitter. We got Facebook. We got.
We're also available, as Tom indicated, on a website. We're at the www.themegameeple.com. That's all one word, themegameeple.com. And you can find some of the information about what we do here on that site.
Very good. So, without any further ado, let's whip up some mac and cheese, grab a Mountain Dew. Let's get on with the episode. All right, welcome back to the Mega Meeple. This is episode 32 and the last episode of 2017. Yeah, we just managed to get this in the books with about, let's see, maybe about 10, 11 hours left of 2017. So, wishing you a happy New Year's. Now, later on in this episode, Al and I will be going down our list of the most anticipated games of 2018. At least the games that have been announced for expected release in 2018 thus far. So stay tuned for that, the second half of this episode. But the first half here, I just want to go over I'm not into New Year's resolution type things, but I've always been an advocate of, if something's important to you, you got to start doing it now. Don't wait until the new year to start it. In fact, I talked a little bit about that in a previous episode, maybe a dozen or so episodes prior. I don't recall the number, but yeah, if you go to our website or on iTunes, you'll most likely see that mentioned in the title of the episode. I just want this to be sort of like a verbal, somewhat quasi-official contract with the listeners and viewers if you watch our YouTube channel. But this past year, or more specifically this past 8 months, have just been really, really cool. I mean, the first episode of the Mega Meeple podcast dropped in, I want to say, the third week in April. So we've been going at this for about 8 months, and we've got quite a bit of traction, even in the introductory episode. You know who I am and what I hope to do in the podcast. But even then, I mentioned that this was going to be a growing, evolving thing that just going to be finding our stride and our signature as we go. And I think we've done that. I've gotten the basically the style of the way I podcast. We just mentioned it here. A lot of people do scripts and written out scripts with their podcast, and I've tried that, and I've deleted the audio. I just don't do well with scripts. I find that I sound fake. I find that it just doesn't gel well with me. I mean, if I am a listener of a podcast that sounds like someone's reading something, I wouldn't take too much stock in what they're saying. But with my style of podcasting, it's very real. It's very raw. I mean, I do have like little bullet points and notes and stuff like that I would I just basically need primarily to write up the show notes for the episode. But I use those same bullet points and notes for when I talk on and record the podcast. But you're getting it all. What you hear is what you get, warts and all. I mean, I do some editing to get all the bloopers and the foo bars, but even then, even those lend themselves to making the conversation, albeit one-sided, because I'm it's not a two-way thing. You're listening to me talk. The two-way comes as a result of you people responding to our tweets and Facebook and emails and so forth through our social media pages. But primarily, that's what we're doing. That's what podcasting. I'm talking, you're listening. But even with that, I think the ums and ahs and stuff like that, it just lends it to a more real, natural style of podcasting. I've said this numerous times in the past. I want this podcast to feel like you're just chatting up with your friend at your local gaming store, or at around the gaming table, or at a bar or something like that. Just chit-chatting, shooting a bowl about board games. Now, I did have this past week, actually, the latter half of December, I did get a bit of a boost of energy, or a shot of what potentially could be done. Is I recently got the Kickstarter version of Awakened Realms Lords of Hellas. Played that a few times. I videotaped a unboxing, which I posted on our YouTube channel, and I posted a link to various other social media sites where people would be interested in not only the unboxing, but an unboxing of that game specifically. And just that video alone has, like, in less than a week, has shot up well over 1,000 views. Now, if you know anything about YouTube algorithms and crap like that, if people click on a video and they just watch maybe the first 10 seconds or so and they click out, YouTube does not register that as an actual view. There has to be so much minutes or so much percentage of the video time that is actually watched to be chalked up as an actual view. And going back on the stats on that particular video on my YouTube channel, on the YouTube diagnostics and stuff, people have watched well over, I think it's well over 75%. I think it's like 78% of that video has been watched in one sitting. So when people click on the video, they're watching 78% of the video before they click to something else. And I timed it out that I think they're clicking out or tuning out when they basically got the gist of the game and the unboxing. There's a section at the end where I go through, it's a little montage slideshow of photos that I took of the game with some music in the back. And it seems like people kind of click off when that comes up. So there, as far as the actual unboxing and the narration, they're staying tuned for the entire thing. So I think that tells me that as I do more unboxings, I think I'll just do away with the little slideshow at the end. But that video has got well over 1,000 views, a lot of likes. It's a lot of comments and interactions on that video. People are wanting a rules video. They're also wanting a playthrough video, which I'm at the time of this recording. I'm almost done with the rules video. I'm just so be looking for that on our YouTube channel to come out. I'd say within the next week or so. And then as I get a group of people together to play it, that agree to be on camera. That's one thing, you get people to play the game, but when you pull out a camera and say that we're gonna do a playthrough video, it's gonna be on our YouTube channel. It yeah they the amount of people that's the pool of people that you have to choose from goes down quite a bit because a lot of people just don't like to be on film or camera. People are camera shy. In the generation of selfies, that's kind of hard to believe. But yeah, that's going to be coming out. The rules video and the playthrough video. Well, at least the rules video is going to come out very soon. I know that, and hopefully a playthrough video. Again, based on if I get enough players that agree to be on camera. So we'll see how that works out. But yeah, hopefully by the end, hopefully within the next month or two, I hope to have it by the end of February, is our new gaming table, which will be biggest addition and improvement to the Mega Meeple studio / game room. So once that happens, you'll see the videos and the YouTube channel ramp up a bit, because I'll definitely be filming and recording more once we get the table in. In fact, I think I'm going to go back. I have quite a bit of footage that I've recorded of reviews and some unboxings, and mostly reviews that I just haven't had time to edit. And I think once the table comes in, I think I'm going to go back and re-record those reviews, just so you can have the backdrop of the table rather than the old dining room table that I have currently. And that brings me to the website. I know pretty much the website has been mostly used, I'd say almost exclusively, to put out the podcasts. I have not been doing much with news or reviews or blogging on the website. I think that's going to change. I want to be more active in writing reviews. I recently created a template file for game reviews that all I got to do is pull that up, type in my thoughts. So I have the basic template of how it's going to be formatted. And I think, too, the reason why I haven't done much reviews is when you're playing a game for enjoyment versus playing a game to review it, there's certain, at least for me, there's certain switches you have to turn on and off in your brain. When you play a game as a reviewer, you have to look at it and approach it a different way than when you're just going to sit down and with a bunch of people have some laughs and just play it just for the enjoyment of it. And it's important to me that I keep those two things separate, because I don't, that's one thing that I don't want this to become, is sort of like a job. Number one, I'm not getting paid for it. So it's not much of a job, but I wanted to, I don't want the hobby to become a work. So I think that's why I've kind of shied away or procrastinated on doing more reviews. Just because when you do a review of a game, there's more of an aspect of work that comes into it. So, but I think I've come up with a way to keep those two things, playing a game just for fun and playing a game to review it, to keep those two dynamics separate. I hope to get more reviews posted on the website. Also, just putting out news, just some heads up about, hey, such or such a company or publisher has announced this. Actually, I've done more with that with Twitter. If you follow the Mega Meeple Twitter account, that's been used a lot more for news or announcements of or retweeting, hey, Fantasy Flight Games just announced this, go check it out, that type of thing. So so if you follow our Twitter account, you've got quite a bit of news. So I hope to start migrating some of that over to the website as well. And then just blogging, I'm not much of a blogger. Again, my little color commentary at the beginning of each episode is pretty much represents more of what my blog would be if I actually wrote it down. So yeah, we'll see how that the whole blog aspect of the website develops. But I think right now, initially, going into the new year, I'm going to concentrate on doing the crossing over our tweets of the news over to the website as well as posting some more reviews. And it's undecided right now how many of those reviews on the website will actually cross over to actual reviews videotaped and put on the YouTube channel. There may be some games that are exclusively on the YouTube channel reviews that will not be on the website, and vice versa. And also there may be a certain percentage of those games that will cross over. The review will be posted on the website as well as the video on the YouTube channel. And speaking of content, I think I'm going to do more as far as content on Patreon and Pod Pledge. That way we could offer our patrons and supporters actual something exclusively just for them, other than just, hey, if you want to donate something for the show, give us a few dollars. You know, I like to see about putting some more quality behind those sales pitches, other than just listening to the podcast and, hey, helping a friend out. So, and I don't know, right now, even though they negated their decision, Patreon is gone back on their. In other words, enough people have give them flack for that decision that they made, that they negged on it. But I think I would be more active on the Pod Pledge. And part of that too is kind of biased because, as you know, in the board game industry, that website was created and maintained and developed by Chaz Marlar, rather than from Paradise, which actually was our very first our very first donation came from Chaz on Pod Pledge. So that was kind of cool. I'll see about putting some exclusive content for our supporters on the Pod Pledge page, at least at first. It may get to the point where I would not need to have Patreon at all. Just go strictly with the Pod Pledge. But we'll see what kind of response and activity we have on that first before I make that call. I know over the past few months I've mentioned that I've recorded our sessions for the Pathfinder RPG group, going through the Emerald Spire campaign. And I've been meaning to chop those things up, and I initially thought of maybe putting that out as a second podcast, but I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna offer those things up as patron only content. So that stuff will only be available if you support us through the Patreon or the Pod Pledge. Right now, just the Pod Pledge, and I may offer that as well as for Patreon. But like I said, I'm gonna focus on Pod Pledge more actively than Patreon right now, at least for the foreseeable future. But as far as offering things for our supporters on Pod Pledge, offer some episodes of our Pathfinder Emerald Spire campaign RPG group. And again, going back to scripting, you hear a lot of podcasts out there of people playing through games and RPGs and certain RPG groups playing through their sessions. And understand, a lot of them are scripted. A lot of them are professional, trained improv actors. So again, sort of like what my podcast is just not scripted. Just shoot from the hip, off the cuff, hey, let's sit down and BS. RPG group episodes are also very unscripted. Where our episodes are, they are very entertaining, and I'm not even talking about the actual role playing. But I mean, just think of RPG meets Mystery Science Theater 3000, and you'll get the idea of what those episodes and sessions are like. So yeah, that's what I'm going to be putting out for at least for our supporters and people that donate on our Pod Pledge campaign. So that is about it as far as looking back and looking forward. I know when I first started this, and I said at first episode, you hear people of these that do these episodes and shows, and they get to episode 50 or whatever, or they get to whatever number, and they usually say, well, I never thought we'd get to episode so-and-so. And I said, even back in episode 1, I have every full intention of getting to episode number whatever. So it's not a question of, are you going to get to this episode? It really boils down to just how much this podcast and show has grown and evolved and improved. I think I really can't go back and listen to episode 1 because I hear all the mistakes and crap that made not even just content wise, but just technical audio wise. But I will be tweaking and playing around with the audio on these episodes next few weeks. So chances are you're not gonna really notice a difference. But if you're a professionally trained or highly experienced audio engineer, you'll probably notice it right off the bat. So I'm looking forward to just having the podcast improve on a purely technical level, and then the content is it's ever evolving, it's ever always improving, it's always getting better, and that's what comes with actually just doing it. The more you do it, the better you're gonna get. And I'm glad to say that over the past 8 months, this podcast has improved. It has gotten better. I mean, hell, we introduced a co-host here about 10 episodes ago, and I think the back and forth and the dynamics, rather than just hearing one person jib jab about what he thinks, to be able to hear just the interactions and the banter back and forth between me and Al just adds a new element to the podcast that I really appreciate Al for joining me on this endeavor. And speaking of Al, let's just go ahead and go right to our segment of the most anticipated games of 2018 that we know so far. So
we survived 2017. Barely. I gotta tell you, I went back on my 10 by 10 challenge, and I initially was gonna do just strictly board games. But I thought, I'm not gonna go anywhere near making it. So I kind of went back, finagled the list, and I added all the RPG games that I played this past year.
That would help.
And,
yep.
It helped, and but I'm still like 15 games short. So I got 15. At the time of recording, I got 15 games to play the next 12 hours.
Tom, look at it this way. 10 by 10 is 100 games during a year, right? And let's say each game is, 2 hours, just on average, okay?
Yeah.
So you're talking putting out 200 hours of gaming minimum in order to fulfill that sucker. That's a couple of weeks straightforward of gaming. I mean, that's heavy duty.
Yeah, but it helped cheat it a little bit. But so even though this is like the first year that I attempted that, it's like, okay, well now I kind of know. I'm getting into what times I'm going to go to get to the table, what things I like. So I think I'm gonna.
I think I fulfilled a 5 by 5. You know what I'm saying?
But yes, I think this year I'm gonna divvy it up and cause I try to do a lot of the solo games and stuff on this past year, but I found I didn't do much solo stuff. A lot of the numbers and stats I'm getting is mostly group games and RPGs.
Well, it's like we were saying on the show a couple episodes ago that, it's a great option to have when you're not able to get other folks to play. But heck, the base fun of board gaming is the socialization. So, hey, I get it.
Yeah. But now that we got 2017 in the rearview mirror, looking forward to 2018. Now, this one, did you find it's kind of hard to make an anticipated game thing? Because
I've got a little list here. Go ahead, Thomas. I'm sorry.
We're just going on what has already been officially announced.
I made a little list.
Year.
There's 3 categories, really, when you're doing these kind of exercises for the next year. Category 1 is something that's been announced on Kickstarter, and it's supposed to be released in 2018, so you have an idea. 2 is expansions to something that already exists, so that's already been indicated. And 3rd is cheating with 2017 stuff that came out in December, or it's getting ready to come out in January, so you actually know that it's actually going to come out.
Right. In fact, actually, we each made a 5, and with an honorable mention, and even at least for my list, even including the honorable mention, only 2 of them are not Kickstarters.
Yep.
So I think we could say that for this list, this is our pre GenCon list of anticipated games. Because I think this past year there were new games being announced a week or 2 before the actual conference. There's quite a few.
I'm looking at least from what I'm seeing coming out now, 2018 being the year of intellectual properties. In other words, adaptations off of movies, TV shows, books. I don't know if it's been particularly over the last several years a nice fresh set of material that's out there, superheroes and good science fiction and stuff, but it seems like we're getting board games that are adapted after those kind of cultural materials. So we'll see how that rolls out.
Yeah. So, all right. So let's do our. We each made a list of 5 games we're looking forward to, and then a few honorable mentions. Why don't you go ahead with one of your ones that didn't quite make the list, but you're still excited about?
Oh, all right. So both of these that I'm going to mention for my just made it list are kind of cheats in that they came out in December or even November of this year, but they really didn't hit the stores heavily quite yet. And there's also rumors of intentions of expansions coming out in 2018. So the first one I named is Fallout, which came out kind of late November, early January, but it sold out quickly. So there's not been a lot of folks that have been able to get a hold of that game yet. And for those who've played the game on the computer, it's been a kind of an exciting. If they do a good implementation, hopefully it's going to be a good game. Another thing about this one is apparently it plays extremely well solo, as you might expect for a game that's an adaptation of a video game, but plays up to 4. So and from what I hear indirectly, I haven't heard anything specific yet, but given that this is coming out through Fantasy Flight, the idea that it won't come out with expansions is silly. So that's the first one on my list that just barely missed making the list. And I think that's it. I think the other ones I've got listed here are in the top 5. How about for you there, Thomas?
My honorable mention is a Kickstarter. It is from the Chip Theory Games Undertow, which I understand is a standalone expansion to Too Many Bones.
You've talked a lot about Too Many Bones, and I have yet to play it, and I'm excited to play that. So we got to break that out one of these days.
Alrighty. Yep. And so that's supposed to the Kickstarter is finished. They're currently taking late pledges now, and I think the time frame for the late pledge is until February, and that's when the price goes up. But that is slated to come back sometime in July, I want to say. I don't have maybe I should put my computer up to look at this before. But yeah, we'll put links to all these games, and you could check these things out and find out when they're coming out from whom. So we'll do it that way. But yeah, it's New Year's Eve. We're taking the easy way out here.
Yeah, I made my list probably last an hour and a half ago. It's a holiday,
Yeah, it's that funk between the week between Christmas and New Year's.
Hard to get motivated.
Yeah, nothing's going on. People they're not working. They're playing solitaire card games on their computer at work. The boss is at golf, and things ain't getting done. So yeah, it's time to rest and get ready for the new year. And you really need a week in order to get ready for the new year.
Kick it back in. Yep, I got you. All right, we'll go with number 5 now?
Yeah, let's do number 5.
All right. Mine is based on Sight Unseen. I understand it's supposed to be released in February of this year, coming up. And it's based on the fact that it's not an expansion, but falls into a group of games with the same title above the line, which is the Manhattan Project. This one is going to be called The Minutes to Midnight. I've played the original Manhattan Project once, and the second one. Do you remember what the title of that one was?
Off the top of my head, no.
Yeah, and I really like it. So I'm surprised I can't bring the name of that game up immediately. I bet you while I'm talking here, I'll come to mind. But anyway, they're both excellent games.
And if not, this is a good opportunity for our listening audience to chime in. So if you know what it is, leave us a comment and contact us through any of our social media pages, which is found on the website.
So anyway, this one is like the countdown clock. In other words, you're trying to prevent the end of the world, basically, which kind of follows in line with the Manhattan Project, et cetera. I know there's also been expansions that have been coming out for that game as well, but based on the play of the Manhattan Project series of games, I'm willing to recommend this one, Sight Unseen. Okay. How about you, Tom?
Number 5 is I'm anticipating it, but kind of leery because I'm sure it's going to be a pitfall of the wallet. And that is the new Star Wars creation from Fantasy Flight Games, Legion. Which is the whole miniature, as if an X-Wing miniature dogfight game isn't enough. Now you could do miniatures, battles, and scenarios and stuff on the ground. So we're looking at that, and they've already. I mean, look at at least what some of the, at least from all the online stores, what they're starting to announce is, yeah, this is going to be pretty heavy laden with expansions and new miniatures and stuff added to it, almost looking like almost weekly. Yeah, that's going to be a massive one. So I'll probably play it via proxy with someone else's copy, or meet up with people at the game store, and if someone there has a copy, play with that. And but yeah, I'm pretty interested in seeing how this comes out. What about your number 4?
My number 4 is one of those intellectual properties I was just telling you about, and it's a super old one. It's surprising that they're coming out now with a game for this based off of this movie. And I think it's been released a little bit earlier this year, but again, not in general release quite yet, which is Big Trouble in Little China.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's a game coming out, like I said, I think it might have been released in December. Love the game. I suspect that it's going to be a silly, joyful thing to play if it's anything like the movie was. One of my favorite movies, so I'm looking forward to seeing that. Lots of miniatures, too, by the way, like you might expect.
All right, well, my number 4 is another Kickstarter, and this one is the second edition of Tiny Epic Defenders. That also is coming out with the Kickstarter. You can get the second edition along with the Dark War. Yeah, so far the Galaxies is my favorite of the Tiny Epic series, and played the Quest, and that one's a close second. But now they have the second edition of the Defenders coming out, and this one is actually I didn't play the first edition, so I don't know if this was part of it, but I know they're utilizing what they used in the Quest version. Is you could attach little swords and shields and whatever to your meeples as you're going around collecting things. So looking forward to that.
Very cool. All right, my next one, I guess is number 3 on the list, is an expansion to a game that I have mentioned just a few times on this podcast. Base game is Terraforming Mars, of course, and the expansion is Venus Next, which my wife and I literally just got a hold of yesterday. Did for this recording. And I've already played it twice. Adds a lot to it. When I say that, it means it adds new cards, adds new corporations, and adds more time unless you make some use of some rules that they provide to shorten the game up a little bit. But if you've played the game a lot, enjoy it a lot, and want to expand out some of the play in regards to especially how the corporations lay out, and without a huge change in the rule set, this is highly recommended. Okay,
cool. All right, well, my number 3 is something that was alluded to back in episode 29 when we had John D. Clare on as our guest, and talking about the history of Mystic Vale and the whole card crafting mechanic and how he came up with that. But the game that they were developing using that whole card crafting style is that they initially was going to come out, and then AEG said, well, this, why don't we come out with something a little bit simpler, and that's when Mystic Vale became a thing. But you could hear all about the history and the backstory of that back in episode 29. But that game coming out is Edge of Darkness. So I'm looking forward to seeing what I guess the bigger brother but younger brother
Simultaneously. Yeah, and I get it. Yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. So that's coming at pretty soon. Called Edge of Darkness.
All right. My second one, number 2 on me, is also another game that got released in late December. It's a follow-on to one of my most favorite games ever, which is Terra Mystica, and the game is called Gaia Project. I don't know if you've heard anything about this, but basically it takes the mechanics of Terra Mystica and rethemes it into a space-oriented kind of 4X style game. Uses a lot of the mechanics that exist, but also then builds on top of that, dealing with the theme. And a lot of times, you kind of cringe when movies, TV shows, or games are getting ready to be updated in any way or changed or rebooted. But I think that the what I've heard in regards to how this has been implemented, at least from a gameplay aspect, it's going to be well worth the play, and I'm looking forward to that one. What I really like about Terra Mystica, I hope they maintain it in this one, Terra Mystica, in and of itself, is almost a generic game, very, very Euro in style. But the systems, there's a multiple set of systems which kind of interlock with one another in a very free-flowing way that doesn't get in the way. And it allows for good catch-up style and so forth. So if they manage to keep that rolling forth in this new update, I'll be very happy.
All righty. Well, my number 2 is estimated as a Kickstarter, estimated to come out in June of 2018, and I'm hoping we're still plugging through the quests in Zombicide Black Plague, and we have Wolfsburg, but we haven't even touched on that. We want to get through Black Plague first, all the quests on that. But hopefully before June, we would have gone through all of those and be ready for Zombicide Green Horde.
That almost made my the alternative list there, and I left it off because I figured you'd cover it.
Yeah, so you come, really, you come over and play my coffee. So. All right, and now going for number 1, what was our most anticipated game of the new year that we know of thus far?
Well, this is not just mine, but it's also Patrice's, and the reason why I got a lot of anticipation for this particular game, and hopefully it will be released, that's certainly what the last word we heard was in 2018. Patrice had a chance to go to some of the conventions this past year, and they showed some preview copies of Rising Sun. And, oh, boy, is that a gorgeous-looking game. If you like the way that Scythe looked and played, from what I understand, you're going to go, oh, my goodness, when you see what Rising Sun looks like. Huge board, huge for a reason because the minis are gorgeous and beautifully scaled, but also from what we saw about the gameplay, it's going to, which of course the Samurai era and warfare in regards to that, is implemented in a Scythe-like style. And I am just psyched to see this when it comes out. I'm not so sure my wallet will be particularly psyched. From my understanding, price point is going to be a little bit on the high side.
Yeah.
But if in this case, it appears from what she saw from the previews, it's going to be well worth the price in this case.
Oh, cool. All right. Well, that makes my number 1 really, really easy because my number 1 is Rising Sun.
Well, only makes sense.
And actually, the update for the Kickstarter that was sent out to the backers on, if you go on a Kickstarter page, it's update number 49. It was sent out to the backers on December 22nd. They posted a estimated schedule of the ships that is bringing the Kickstarter copies of Rising Sun. and at least the USA Hub thing is slated to arrive in the U.S. on January 6th.
January 6th. Interesting, at least for the Kickstarters.
Yeah.
Is there any word on whether they're going to do retail and any schedule on that?
Let me see. Not in this specific update. Probably in one of the previous updates. I'll link that Kickstarter page to the show notes as well as Simon's page for it. So you could go back and look at the previous updates to be able to see. But yeah, it looks like originally estimated delivery of April. But it looks like things were evidently running so smoothly that we may get slightly ahead of schedule for the Kickstarter.
So as soon as spring, huh? At least for the Kickstarter. That's awesome. That's good to hear.
Yeah.
I'll get a chance to take a look at that. So I'm sure the local game stores will have somebody bringing their copy out. Yeah, going, ooh, look at this.
That's about it for our list. So, Al, you go ahead and have a happy New Year's. Don't drink too much.
Yeah, it has to be better than this last one. That's for sure. Not only from a personal point of view, but you you name it. Political. Yeah. I don't want to get into the politics podcast here, but this has been some year.
Yeah. So we could hopefully we could only get better from here, or at least make some kind of strides or improvements.
Hope so.
But that's why we have gaming, so we could kind of like turn our brains off to that type of thing and turn our brains on to something else that's more enjoyable.
Turn off the TV for about 3 hours and play a game. Exactly.
Alrighty. So that is it. So on behalf of Al and myself, and we just want to wish everybody out there a happy New Year's. Be safe. Don't drink and drive and all that.
All that good stuff.
We shouldn't have to say it, but it tends to have to be said.
And kind of what Tom was just saying, from all of ours to all of yours, Happy New Year, and I hope you have a great year.
Well, thank you so much for listening to the Mega Meeple. If you'd like to help us out with hosting costs for the podcast, you go to our Pod Pledge site and donate $1 or so every month. Really helps out.
Yeah, we also have a Patreon presence, and we'd be happy if you also help us out there.
And also, if you are a creator or game designer, or you have a new Kickstarter coming out and you'd like to be a guest on the show to talk about your game, you can contact us through the website. Again, that's www.themegameeple.com.
So thanks for joining us. He's Tom.
He's Al.
And hope you'll join us again next week.